Welcome back to the Trusted Podcast.
Today, we welcome our first guest from the Southern Hemisphere, Martin Coyle of Mabel Insights.
Martin's career has been underpinned by risk, whether that's taking on the challenge of joining AXA at £0 and seeing that go through 20 billion, or whether that be more recently setting up and co-founding Mabel Insights.
Today's episode is going to be a corker, pardon the Australia pun. Sit back, grab a cuppa, and get ready for the content. Martin Coyle, very warm welcome to the Trusted Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Marcus.
It's been planes, trains and automobiles to get you here today, hasn't it?
It has. It's my first visit to the studio.
Yeah, up in St Helens. We showed you the glamour of that time when we picked you up from the train station, didn't we?
That's right. I was wondering where I was, but it's nice to come up north. I love coming up north.
Oh, good. And also, importantly, our first guest from the Southern Hemisphere on the podcast as well.
Right. That's quite good, given there's quite a lot of Australians over working in this industry.
We saved that spot for you.
Yeah, we've been selective about that. But we may as well start off there. What initially was it that kind of brought you over to the UK? Is that where your financial services career started, or were you involved in that back in Australia as well?
I was working for National Australia Bank in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, and had a national role there for a while. And I'd been in Brisbane for a number of years, and I decided I wanted to get some international experience for the CV. And I thought, well, National Australia Bank had a place over here in London, and I thought, do you know what? I had a few friends here. I thought I'll fly over, took some holidays, so kept my job, took some holidays, came over, and had a discussion. And my friend and ex-colleague said, platforms, investment, it's taking off here. You've got a lot of platform knowledge. You'll get a job easily. So I thought, right, I will just resign and come over. And I had 5 interviews in a week.
Really?
And I had what was Norwich Union, which ended up being Aviva.
Yep.
I had SEI, I had Prudential, and I had, I think it might have been Celestia I spoke to, and maybe one other. And I got 2 or 3 sort of second appointments, but by that time I was back in Australia.
Yep.
And then what happened from there was the Prudential said, we're just going through this thing called RDR. You have just been through that in Australia. Mm-hmm. We could really do with you in our business consultancy team. We will fly you over.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, what better transition?
Yeah.
And that was so fortunate because not only was I treated so well, I had the ability to go around to see clients all around the country. I spent the first 18 months seeing all their major advisors around the country, and working with their sales teams. Yeah. And that was just the best entry I could have wished for.
Yeah.
And and I thought 2 years and I'll go back to Sydney or Melbourne.
Yeah.
And 20 odd years later,
still here.
I'm still here. And I'm in St Helens.
Yeah.
And kept the weather as well.
Yeah. And Australia's lost an extraordinary amount of sport during that period as well since I moved over.
Yeah.
But it looks like the tide's turning, so that's all right.
Yeah, if the latest Ashes or anything to go by, but I don't think we'll speak about cricket. It's not
we'll
very favourable for us.
That.
And I think probably a lot of people, especially newer into the profession, don't realise the influence that Australia had on platforms. I mean, if you look at Transact, the majority of their development teams still sit over in Australia at the moment. I think Australia were the first real pioneers of what we now know as a wrap platform, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they had them in sort of the US in some guys and Australia, but Australia and Australians have had a huge influence in financial services over here in regards to platforms, and it's not easy to navigate because you can't just move to another country and start saying that how things operate. I mean, I came over, I didn't know what an ISA was. I don't even think I pronounced it correctly. So you don't have an understanding of the actual landscape. You might know platforms or how it operates in another country, but you don't know the nuances of operating here. So it was difficult initially because you had sales teams remunerated on the old style sales. Yeah. And you've got I shouldn't describe myself as gobby, but you've got this little Aussie coming in saying, the world's going to change. We're moving from commission to fees.
Yeah.
We're going to stop product by product. You're going to have it all in this thing called a platform. Fees are going to come down. So the companies didn't want to hear it either when you said, those 1%, 2%, 5% things, they're going.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. So you're almost the deliverer of some efficient technology, but also the deliverer of bad news.
Yeah.
Both the sales teams and the companies themselves.
Yeah.
And advisors have gone through tremendous change during that period, to actually change the way they totally are remunerated, and they've just had to contend with regulation after regulation.
Yeah.
So it's been, it's not been easy. There's a few Australians left.
Yeah.
I know Rachel Reeves has done a piece to try to remove as many as possible.
Yeah.
But there's still a few dotted around the industry and some pretty good roles within the platform and investment industry here.
No, brilliant. We'll dig into kind of some of the sales stuff in a bit, going on to AXA, Morningstar, and then Mabel. What were kind of some of the key learnings that you had coming over to the UK? What are the differentials between Australia and the UK in terms of that sales process? Was there anything out there that they were doing really well that kind of you emulated and brought over here? It'd be interesting to hear around that.
The bit that I really realized was valuable was that consultative sales approach.
Yep.
We were absolutely drilled in our organizations in Australia as how to utilize a consultative sales process, the diagnosis and then looking at where they are today and where they want to get to, their current reality versus their desired reality. And then how does the advisor wish to bridge that gap?
Yeah.
How are they going to change their value proposition there? How are they going to segment, the clients, fees, etc. And then also linking that back to what do they want to achieve? Mm-hmm. So do they want to work less? Do they want to expand the business? Do they want more staff? Do they want staff doing different things? Do they want to play golf 3 times a week? Like, what is it that they're trying to create? And then we spoke to advisors in a very different way, as a result of bringing that consultative process over here. And there's been a few sort of external consultants that operate over here in the UK who have built successful businesses off the back of that consultative approach with advisors.
Yep.
And it's been quite successful.
I was going to say, it must be pioneering in that regard, because it only seems like in the past kind of 5-7 years we've been going that way over here. When we first started in sales, it still felt very product orientated, but only kind of as of recent as it's been, oh no, how can we diagnose? How can we help that business? What are the pain points for advisors? So it's quite pioneering to know that they were doing that from early days.
If advisors want to know how you can help them, it's likely they want information around how they can transform their business.
Yeah.
So what can the provider, platform, investment manager, etc., how can they help them transform their business from where it is today to where they want to get to?
Yeah.
Because most of them aren't just running it to run into the ground. Mm-hmm. They've got an end goal. So it's about how can you line up behind that and provide some support and service to actually deliver it.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. You speak to some of our longer standing relationships and you say, what is it that you look for when you speak to a BDM? When will you let them have that initial meeting and stuff like that? And they always go back to that point, which is what Marcus was alluding to earlier. The amount of times that somebody will come to them from an investment manager and say, oh, look, this is how well we've performed and this is the price. And although that they are very important for the due diligence process and that very important for that value for money piece, there's not enough to excite the advisor to want to move wholesale because they know that there's a short-term pain. They almost will be more kind to those BDMs who help them consultatively understand the business, where that's going. And trying to get those two is really, really difficult. The regulator will have consumer duty, which is very client-focused, which might put the emphasis on charging. But there is a human element to the advice practice that must say, well, what's in it for them to go through the short-term pain to get there as well. It's a really kind of tricky route to navigate.
Yeah, you've got different perspectives because the advisor wants something out of what they're doing. They want to make sure the client's getting something out of the transaction, and the provider needs to get something out of the transaction for all they have to actually deal with and provide. So, they're all coming at it from a slightly different angle, and it's about joining that up to be able to deliver the client outcome.
Yep.
And advisors don't want to have difficult conversations with clients, in my experience. I'm always careful not to speak on behalf of advisors, and I'll speak maybe a bit later about what I think constitutes sort of a really good BDM and what I look for in those. But you can't. You're not an advisor if you're a BDM and you've never been one.
Yeah.
So you have to treat it with quite a bit of respect, because that's a difficult role that advisors play in the marketplace. And you've got to look at how you can support them in the journey that they're on. They'll let you in the door if your intentions are genuine. Yes, they know you might work at one company one year, and 5 years later you're at another company.
Yeah.
But they'll remember that you helped them.
Yeah.
They don't remember particularly the badge on the door.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And I suppose coming into the UK market with a bit of a head start on the rest of the platform space, do you think, and I suppose it's going to be a running theme about taking the leap, whether it was coming across to the UK in the first place or, going across to what you could consider a startup in what has become the Elevate platform with AXA. You were in there incredibly early, I suppose. Were you seeing how that was going to revolutionize the platform space, and you were able to kind of get in there early and take that risk to see it through to fruition?
Yeah, when I had the opportunity to join AXA Elevate, I was super excited because it was in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to think so much about how I was going to do the role, because I was enthused and energized about it. And there was a sensational team there.
Yep.
And, a number of those have gone on to fantastic. They had great careers back then, so they're still around now. So, we've spoken about the likes of, Martin Jennings at Parmini and, Paul McMahon, who's got a successful NED career, who was CEO at the time. And it was, it was really excited coming into AXA Elevate and seeing something that was, they hadn't decided the pricing when I got there. So to be able to speak to, I don't want to start name dropping everybody because I don't know where they are these days, but John Harrington, I remember a conversation with him around the pricing and some of the successful pricing mechanisms of the platforms back in Oz. And I was able to say, look, let's replicate this. It's something different. The others aren't priced like this. Yeah. And, we ran out there and we had great distribution because we had the whole AXA arm, and AXA back then must have had, I can't remember how many sales guys who were in the broader market, not just platform. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we built the platform from scratch with I was reporting to Andy Coleman and Laura Eden, who's still having a fantastic career in platform at the moment. And we built it up from scratch. Yeah. And I've got a picture still of the very first terms of business that came in, which is a bit weird that I've still got it, but. It was, it was a really exciting time, and that's the thing about your career, and then using the knowledge that you have, but also recognizing trends.
Yep.
The time to be, in platform was then. It still is now, but it was absolutely in its infancy. Yep. Not too dissimilar to MPS over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
There's cash flow modeling and all kinds of things that continue. The waves and the trends continue, and it's just about being at the forefront of what's happening in the industry and enjoying it.
Yeah, there'll be a variety of different people who watch the podcast, some from big companies, some from smaller companies, but getting in a business at that stage, how different is the sales process to formerly kind of working for Morningstar when it's a bigger brand?
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the kind of the key differences that you take from your time when you're at AXA?
AXA was a well-known brand, but well-known especially for insurance, maybe offshore bonds and a few other products that they had at the time. Running around to try and sell a platform, and you needed advisors that were pretty much visionaries of, all right, I believe what you're telling me. I believe I'm going to have to make this shift at some time. I'm willing to take a chance and do it now. Yeah. Because it's, it's like build it and they will come. It takes time. Yeah. And it's one of the things that companies have little appetite for is waiting.
Yeah.
Look, it would be worse in America where they're, quarterly earnings or monthly, whatever they're doing, the pressure, the pressure to actually deliver, to take 6 months to get the very first sale, feels like I'm enjoying this, but this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's
Start
2,
snowballing.
then it's 4, then it's 8. And advisors have a fantastic way of talking to each other around what's working in their business. When advisors get together, the ideas start to permeate all the other advisors around them. And but early doors, it was really pushing.
Yeah. So it must have been really intense, boots on the ground, kicking down doors in advisors' offices all the time, that sort of.
Yeah. Well, it was. I mentioned earlier it was difficult there from the perspective that, and it was the same when I went to Aegon. It was difficult from the perspective that the sales team have got their own targets with other products, and I'm trying to have myself or a team wedge into that conversation.
Yeah.
Again, what happens is, soon as one or two BDMs, etc., start to have some success, the other BDMs are looking over the fence, aren't they?
Yeah.
What did you say? Why? How has this happened? Why have you hit your target based on this? And then they start to get very interested when it looks like it's being successful. And then the other is making sure that the management team are actually setting the incentives to drive the result that they're after. So, for example, I've had some leadership where they've said, "Don't worry, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about the short-term targets. Just keep doing what we're doing, because the company's plan is at some point we will close this, switch everyone's attention. But before you have that chat, you feel like you're a lone wolf. But we've had some really great salespeople on both sides of the fence, from the older products right through to the the platform where the cream rises to the top. You just see some fantastic habits, and you see you can recognize them pretty quickly, and you can see how the advisor warms to them, how they ingratiate them into their business, how open they are in terms of the conversation. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, we've always found that startup cultures, bearing in mind we've seen both big company where we started into a startup culture, it seems to attract a certain type of person, somebody who is willing to tolerate short-term pain for long-term gain. And I think it really depends on what you want from your career, because there are easier salaries to earn, but it depends on what you think the upside potential can be. And I think it builds resilience in you from quite a early age if you can get into that startup culture, because you're right. I at the start, especially when you're talking about pricing and things like that, the direction's not absolutely clear. And I think once you see a business that's gone through that life stage and it's at a latter stage, that the growth trajectory is a little bit more steady, and you think that the staff turnover is going to be quite low. And whereas in a startup culture, you're kind of, going through the motions, making loads of mistakes and trying to learn from all of that. And you've obviously seen that go from 0 to 20 billion, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was about 20 by the time I exited AXA.
So I can understand what drew you to it. How do you know when you've come to the end of the road with the business and you're ready for your next challenge?
Good question. Sometimes it's not by choice. No. When one of the clear sort of indications that is working with the people around you, and I've been so fortunate to have really good people and really good mentors and really good leadership and colleagues. So what that has meant, when that starts to change, someone takes a job somewhere else, or something fundamentally happens to the business, mentally you think, right, what I've enjoyed over the last 3 to 5 years or 7 years or what have you isn't going to be replicated over the next 3 to 5. There's other people coming in, there's other dynamics. One of the things that happened was there was the AXA and Winterton merger. And then the reporting lines all start to change, and then you have to deal with that, and you can say, look, and I stayed around for a while, so and there were good, some really good people there as well. But the dynamics change, the focus changed, the decision making changes, etc. And at Aegon, there was another merger. We had the co-funds merger as well. And when I got to Aegon, that was taking the Aegon platform from zero. I mean, once you throw on co-funds, which I had very little to do with the purchase of, but all of a sudden it's a 0 to 100 billion, and then so things change, management changes, focus changes. So you just start to see, well, is this, how long do I want to continue to do this particular role? Do I want to do it here? There's career salespeople, and which I would say that I'm one. Yep. And I think that you want to get into management perhaps, or you might want to take a different sort of role somewhere, or have a broader experience around the industry. And it's hard to get out if you've been in it a long time. Yeah. So you start to have to make some decisions about how you can step it up.
Yeah. How was that transition? Because I know at Morningstar you were responsible for the sales team. How was that from going from the salesperson regional to managing a wider universe and different personalities and different things like that?
Yeah, so I was managing teams at Aegon.
Yep.
So the transition to Morningstar wasn't a leap from a sort of sales into management, but it was a transition back to where I started in Australia, which was Australia's largest multi-asset manager.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's where I started my career. So I was back to investment, which I just enjoy outside of work. So so that was really good. The transition to managing people.
Yep.
I'm just going to digress for a minute. There's a company that I met years ago in Australia, and they were it's a US firm. I think they're based in Los Angeles. They're Capital International. They're a huge asset manager. In that company, the salesperson can be the CEO. So they don't actually have these kind of levels where you can come from anywhere within the business to take the top job.
Yeah.
And I think that is a model that they should look at in some other organizations where they can promote some of that decision making. I see some boards where the distribution heads aren't at the table.
Yeah.
And I am gobsmacked, because I think every successful business does have someone at the table.
Yep.
And, Capital International's model of actually doesn't matter. You could be from operations, or it doesn't, you don't just have to stop at a certain role. Yeah. And I think, that aids decision making, because I don't think anyone is closer to the customer than the sales division.
You're the voice, aren't you?
It's
Absolutely.
like AJ Bell with Fergus. Fergus Lyons, who was the MD at Invest Centre for AJ Bell, was a sales guy and always brought that commercial awareness to problem solving. There was a real people focus plus commercial overlay. It wasn't so product driven, and I always found that so powerful. And I completely agree with you, because they're the ones who are constantly hearing the feedback as well. And it's sometimes you see bigger companies where the sales team don't have an influence over the product decision making. They don't have a decision or an influence over the marketing function, and that kind of disjointedness, I always think, leads to massive opportunities missed and wasted.
Agree, 100%. I think that the marketing end up being my best friend wherever I've worked.
Yeah,
because they're not out meeting advisors every day, and this is the superpower, if you like, of the sales team. They are meeting all your customers all day, talking to them all week. They get the insights that marketing would just love to have. So you have to have that loop back into marketing. Yeah. Otherwise, they're flying blind. Yeah. They're putting out some great content, but it could be missing the mark. Mm-hmm. It's only because the sales team aren't engaged, or vice versa, with marketing that occurs. And you see some. There was a period where Martin Jennings, funnily enough, he was sales and marketing director of AXA Elevate. So, for example, that was a very successful platform for a long period of time. And what you've got is someone who's actually looking across both. So they're taking in the feedback from both about what might be the best route. Yeah. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Similar with product as well. We've been in places in the past where product and the sales team aren't aligned, and you find products start building products which aren't relevant, whereas the sales team could have told them that wasn't relevant, or would have given them side direction.
I wonder
in terms
where we
of
get the reputation for being arrogant from.
Yeah,
The product team are doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So just looping back to the point on management, I'm conscious of taking that step. Did you enjoy that step? Is that something that you've liked through your career, or do you prefer the grittiness of being out on the road yourself, or trying to blend the two?
You know, it's a constant struggle between what you're good at and what you want to do, because you want the responsibility and the accountability and the let's not muck about. The pay can often be much better in the management roles than it is in sales, depending on the remuneration structure. And if you want to progress your career through the ranks, at some point you've got to bite the bullet and move into it. Mm-hmm. What have I enjoyed the most? I look back to it's the hunt, it's the thrill of the chase, and targets, setting targets, and hitting those targets. I think I know that's probably some of the people I've managed will watch this podcast, so hopefully you've got the comments turned off. But I like to think that I feel that I enjoyed working with the team rather than being the boss.
Yeah.
And but the hard part is where you're delivering decisions that you may not necessarily agree with. Mm-hmm. And that is very difficult when you think, well, I probably wouldn't have made the same decision, but you can't do anything. Yeah. So sometimes you have things done to you, and that's very difficult for the sales team to swallow, because they know where I've come from. Yeah. They know I was one of them. They know I wasn't a career manager, and I frame things in flowery language and all that sort of stuff. I was quite real, but that reality hurts. Or bites, as the saying is.
Yeah. That's something I'm experiencing for the first time at the moment, and I think that was a hard transition. I think it was baptism by fire for me, taking the role on in September and through to the end of the year, and I found / still find the balance of, I haven't changed overnight, guys. I'm not a different person. I'm on your team.
I'll tell you he has.
but sometimes
you'll tell by the language.
You're close enough to see how the sausages are made, but not close enough to influence the recipe. Is how I described it. And it's quite a hard line to toe at times. But I think it's, as you say, just trying to frame things with an empathy that recognises, how would you feel being at the end of this? Is this a case of, please just trust me on this, there's not much we can do about it, we just need to all muck in and move on? Or is it a case that actually you do need to fight the corner in the sales team? I'm still learning that.
You just said exactly what I was thinking around fighting their corner, because that's what it feels like. And sometimes I wonder, other divisions fighting their corners, or is it just sales that has that added pressure where a corner has to be fought? And representing that team to the best of your ability, trying to make sure that you have realistic but stretching, because it's not about just turning up and hitting target and getting bonuses. You want to work. Yeah. And, you want the company to achieve and hit the targets, because frankly, if they don't hit the numbers that they need to hit, then they won't need all the people in the business. Yeah. So, you're really fighting for something that's realistic yet achievable. Yeah. And, you do have to fight the corner, and you don't always win. Some people would say I didn't win very often, but from time to time I did.
And when you win, you win big.
Yeah, when I win big, hopefully.
Do you know that part on the hunt that you mentioned earlier? I thought it was really interesting. You know what it's like, when you land a big contract and you're running around your office at home going, yes, and shaking your missus working from home. So, I've just won this. And she's like, no idea what you're talking about. I found that this week there was someone that we were really keen on hiring, and there was a bit of kind of like to and fro, and he said, "Oh, yeah, go on, I'll go for it." I was like, that was the first time I've had that in a while. That same kind of like buzz that you get from a sale, but getting somebody in that is going to make a meaningful impact. I thought, has the buzz changed into that role now? Is it a combination of things? Because I very much follow the same path that you do. Still want to be at the coalface, just supporting the team. But it was just, that was a bit of a pinch me moment. I was like running around the house doing that, going, oh, maybe it's not the sales anymore. Maybe it's getting the right people in, or getting the right decision, or whatever else it is.
Celebrating success is extremely important. Celebrating the team that achieve it as well. So, the management part, it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
It's about the team. And even if, one particular person has a fantastic win, I tell you what, look around the business and see how many people have actually touched this account.
Yeah.
And how many people over the years may have been involved.
Yep.
And what collateral or marketing or other things might have contributed to it, what pricing proposition and it contributed to it. And you will find that nobody wins anything in isolation.
Yeah.
Yes, they may have got the signature and they might have been, the person front and center at the account, but everyone's done it
as part of that process. Really interesting. On that team element, you'll have undoubtedly managed and worked with some fantastic sales individuals. What makes a sales individual stand out? What if you were hiring someone, what kind of traits are you looking for? What would you? Yeah.
I'll start with, I had a, actually, no, I won't start with that. I'll save that story. I will, people say, you've got to be passionate. But you have to be interested in the subject matter. You have to be interested in you've got to be genuinely curious around advisors and around their business and around investment and platform. And, you have to be, all over it.
Yeah.
If someone's just going through the motions, I could tell pretty quickly that they're just, peddling out whatever they think you want to hear in an interview, or you can sense that actually they're invested in it. And that goes a long way. That goes a long way because that they want to do well.
Yep.
Also, I like to try and understand, and you don't always get it early on, but you want to understand why they want to work for that organization. How have they come across it? Was it, I just happened to see it and the number looked right, or, if anyone publishes the number. And, what are they working for? What do they enjoy doing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it golf? Is it holidays? Is it the children's education? Is there something that, I actually made a segue to that story now. I had an old, I'll call him old, poor fella, manager years ago in Australia, and he could not get his head around that I wouldn't go and get a mortgage.
Yep.
Because he wanted me in debt up to here.
We've heard this before.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
Go buy yourself a new car. Oh, don't get it. Don't get this one. Don't. Oh, look, John's got that one. It was really.
Yeah.
Oh, the bank will give you this much money. Like he just couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
But I had bigger plans of pumping money into pension, securing freedom over time.
Yep.
Traveling, getting international experience. So I wasn't going to go and buy a massive house in the middle of Brisbane or Sydney or something. Although, I'll be well retired by now if I did.
Yeah.
But I wanted to experience things, and but you do need to know what drives people.
Yeah.
He probably didn't spend the time to see what drove me. It took him a while to come around. But his initial thing was people are driven by the need to work, rather than that they want to, and they've got other things that they might aspire to or want to do.
Paul Hogarth, when he was on, he says he likes his sales individuals to be divorced with sports cars on the drives because he knows
the whole
they've got an expensive life to pay for.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. These guys, they used to, want to make sure that your partners were dripping in diamonds or whatever you could do to have an expensive lifestyle. They were trying to do, but that is the it's one thing I was thinking about coming up here was about the salespeople from 15, 20 years ago to salespeople today. There's a complete transition in. They weren't unprofessional back there.
Yeah,
but they've changed.
Yeah.
And they're much, I think they're much broader in the knowledge. Some of the ones that have left the industry in the past 10, 15 years, unbelievably technically. No wonder so many of them have become advisors.
Mm-hmm.
They are so technically competent. They, a lot of the companies, like Aegon was a great one for this, absolutely ploughed them into education, make sure that they were getting diploma level 4. If you're speaking to an advisor, you should be at or near the same level as the person you're talking to across the desk.
So you can speak with authority.
So before I came over here, I did my CFP in Australia.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't need to have CFP. and did my investment one as well. But I didn't need to do it. But we also had the same ethos of if you're sitting opposite someone, you need to have that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Because you're talking to a professional advisor, and you need to be at the level. So I think that's not quite the case these days. I think that technical competence has been lost a little, and I think the training of salespeople these days has all but gone. Yeah. And that goes the same for salespeople and middle management.
Yeah.
I think that is a real shame that there's not a lot of investment in training and supporting the sales divisions.
Yeah.
So that's my I was on my soapbox there on that one.
Well, you know what? It was one of the reasons we started Trusted, really. I think that we had so many people that we looked to as mentors who said that they actually had been a bit overwhelmed by the amount of training that they'd had in the early days, whether it was negotiation training, prospecting training, all the way through to those little nuanced pieces around the management structure, understanding firms, that technical piece. There was so much in-depth training. We just don't see it anymore.
No.
We're pioneering it personally, internally at the moment. But it was one of the reasons why we wanted to get people such as yourselves in front of the camera so that our audience can understand what they could do to get more out of their career. This is really a way of trying to help upskill other people. So you sharing your experience, hopefully there's a hiring manager or somebody senior at the other end of this who says, you know what, Martin's right, we should do some more sales training, we should do some more focus on this. And I'm not sure where it comes from, whether it's a profitability piece, whether it's a piece on you don't want to distract your sales team because every day out the office is a day that they could be on the phones or doing some. I really don't know what the balance is. I'm not sure if you've got a take on that.
There's a couple of things. I think it's difficult to find good trainers as well.
Specific to financial services.
Specific to financial services and specific to selling. There's two particular ones that I admire at the moment, and I won't be able to actually get their names, but there's two at the moment, and one is about how you think. So it applies to everyone in every industry. And it's fantastic. Richard Jackson was his name. And the other one you've had on your podcast.
Andy Bounds.
Yep.
And because it's real and it's
common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense, but you need to hear it because you don't hear it anywhere except out of Andy Bounds' mouth. So, you've got people like that, they're the sort of two groups. The winning edge is Richard Jackson's. Yeah. They're the two ones that I think have, Richard Jackson especially in terms of having an influence on my career because it changed the way. But, I feel really old now saying my advice, but get educated is my advice. And I don't mean get educated, go and do an MBA. That's really good to get a broad, good experience and, that education. And, doing your financial planning studies, that's really good as well. But I mean, there's a load of great books. There's a load of great books around running small businesses, for example, because that's who you're talking to most of the time, small business entrepreneurs. And there's, reading the FT. You don't have to read it cover to cover. Pick your subjects. Pick the money section. Pick know what's going on. I'm guilty of not probably reading the end customer stuff in some of the other, and sometimes that's a little bit too tabloidy. But the professional publications, get reading them and educate yourselves and just keep abreast of what's happening because you can bet that the clients ring in the advisor to talk about it. So you want to be pretty much well-rounded about what's happening on the street. So, I think that's the way forward. But that sales training thing, I think it's a shame. It's just not out there.
Yeah.
And they do have to invest in it. And I don't know why they don't.
It's interesting and kind of on the theme of entrepreneurship. Kind of leads us to present day.
Yes.
In your story. The theme has been risk, definitely. Being able to take on risk, take on educated risk, I suppose. You've obviously taken a significant risk in your life. Obviously, we were talking about your family situation before, taking your wife's position where she was very comfortable with your salary, as a kind of head of distribution, into now founding Mabel, and we're coming up to 2 years. So congratulations on that. How did you manage that, and what more can we do to foster entrepreneurship? Yeah, in sales.
Yeah, it's a big question. Stepping out of an industry, I've been employed since I was 18 in financial services, both in Australia and here. Not a day without it. So that was, so when I flew over from Australia in December 31st, 2005, I started work at Peru on the 4th of Jan or something. So it was like the Friday to the Monday or whatever it was, it was just straight in, and then off I went over here. And when I left, did the gardening leave, say from AXA to Peru, boom, working straight. So to actually get to a point where you're actually responsible for your own destiny, responsible for your own income, your decisions determine whether you're going to be successful or not, and you have to live and die by them. I often get asked, do I wish I did it earlier? Yeah, it's a question I get asked a lot. Do I wish I did it earlier? And yes, I'd love to have been younger, but I wouldn't have had the network. Yeah. I wouldn't have had the experience. I wouldn't have the contacts, and the experience is everything. And the market's got to be ripe for disruption.
Yep.
May have been ripe for disruption for some time, but you've also got a burgeoning MPS market. You've got a regulation where advisors need more and more data points to be able to conduct their research and put together their financial plans and suitability. So it's the timing. Everything just came together at the right time, and so that is luck. And I used to always think, that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. But I tell you what, 25-year preparation to go out on your own is quite a lot of preparation. But it's been fantastic. I've got two fantastic co-founders in Gaurav Gupta and Lawrence Cook with fantastic experience themselves, and they really bring something else to the party. But it's taking that risk, and I think, how do you foster salespeople to actually take a chance and develop some sense of entrepreneurialism, if I can call that. So you've got one person said to me years ago that you should manage your patch like it's your own business. The profit, the loss, you've got a revenue number or a assets under management target that you're going for. So you need to manage that. You need to manage the resources around you to deliver that number. You need to be able to dissect the market as to who's going to help you deliver on those numbers. You need to run. Yes, you have to play with the team, but you are literally running your franchise. Yeah. And you can get some fantastic experience in considering yourself a business person rather than just the salesperson in the Southwest or whatever. You're running a business. Yep. And you need to call on marketing, you need to call on finance, you need to call on these different departments. You're lucky that you're part of large organizations where you've got the means. When I have to call on finance or legal, I look in the mirror. Yeah. But it's I've of course got my colleagues, but there's you've got so much at your disposal, and it's about making sure that you utilize those. And you can learn that sort of, to be an entrepreneur in-house. And I probably had the benefit of 25, 30 years of being able to, learn the good, the great. And then I was able to take that risk. And if I did it earlier, I mightn't have made it.
It's really funny, not to the same extent with running your own business, but even the transition when we went from our previous business, which was a FTSE 250 to Timeline, when I came across, and I remember arranging an event, and nothing went into my diary, and because previous to that at my old business, it was like, Joe Bloggs puts that in your diary. And I was like, well, I've got to go and do that. It's so weird to grasp these little things that automatically get done for you, or you've got a problem, you go and speak to this guy, and it gets solved, and it's on you now.
You
learn a lot about yourself at that point.
Absolutely. I think that I think the worst thing that a BDM can do is become isolated. And there's for some reason, I'll hark back to the Southwest. That is notoriously the most difficult place to actually recruit BDMs. Did you know that? It is for 25 years, it's been the hardest place to actually recruit BDMs.
They had to get Will from the Northwest to do it.
Put it down there. Yeah, I'm not surprised, and I don't know if it's the isolation or what it is down there, or maybe they do a few years and the lifestyle's so good.
It's miles away. Even if you live in Bristol, it's about 5 hours to get to the bottom of your region. So I think that's...
I tell you what, when I was managing people, and they'll laugh at this, I had no concept. Coming from a large country, I had no concept of distances here. So, Plymouth to Portsmouth, I just felt that they were the same. So I didn't know distances here at all, and I was always cutting up the country the wrong way, until I realised how you go across the West Midlands and how people go certain distances where the train tracks were. But it was difficult at the start.
Abraham's agreed to come to Penzance with me. I'm not sure if he's quite seen how far it is from Essex at the moment, but it's a fair old schlep. But Martin, I mean, this has been so interesting, even just from our perspective. I hope our audience finds it useful as well. If you were to give our audience one lasting piece of advice, something that will help them get more out of the career, what would you want to leave the trusted community with?
Already said it, and it was around that holistic education piece. It was about taking responsibility for, you can have things happen to you, or you can make things happen. And, you do not be in a sales role if you do not feel you belong in that sales role, because it'll be the most soul-destroying job. If you feel you've got the enthusiasm, the will, and the support around you, this can be a career that'll pay you over time, fantastic rewards, and you'll meet so many people and have a wonderful career. But it's not for everyone.
Yep.
It's not for everyone. So you wouldn't want someone to be disheartened. And also, if things do happen to you, it's not necessarily your fault, because you're all often working for large organizations who make strategic decisions as to what markets they're going to what products they're going to deploy, etc. And it's not personal most of the time.
Brilliant. It's been fantastic having you on the podcast. Really appreciate your time, Martin.
Great. Thank you very much, guys.